I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show. I'm glad you guys could join us. I think we got a pretty good show for you guys today. We're going to be diving back into the Pappa. Well, I guess Pappa Rodgers is going to be bringing up, but we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger and the possibility. Is he Pappa Rodgers? You know, this is new to me. You know, I put in new in the title of the show, and this because it's new to me. I never looked into Pappa Rodgers. I didn't think it was the guy. You know, I thought maybe perhaps. Given the fact that, you know, if we go through the PCA and it talks about certain things that Bryan Kohberger did, I thought, you know, he wouldn't insert himself into the crime. And I figured it would be a way of inserting yourself into the crime, so to speak, a modern way. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was involved. I know AI has looked into it and AI thinks it's him. I know there's been a couple of sources and that have spoken with some major media outlets who have also indicated that it could be him. Well, we'll break it down. We'll look into it. We have a special guest today who has been in charge of a couple of different Facebook groups. I've seen her on a documentary and referencing these Facebook groups and what they've done. And Pappa Rodgers was a prevalent on one of them. And so we'll go into some of his messages and things of that nature. But before we bring her on and before we get into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our partnership with DataSale. If you have any concerns with your privacy, whether it's your name, phone number, address, email address, voting preference, religious preference, that's all on the interwebs. You want that, you know, wiped out, check out DataSale, links in the description, get a 5% discount. Also, guys, don't forget we have the official, let me pull it up real quick, the official DT Idaho House Bill 37 firing squad unit t-shirts. We have 2 different versions. We have your regular t-shirt. We also have the woman's razorback, and on the back of each one says firing squad unit. Link is in the description. Also, because I know some of you guys are interested in, and I'm so happy and appreciative of this, but you know, little Rogie, her birthday's around the corner. She's gonna be 2 years old. It's crazy. It feels like yesterday we were doing the countdown. Well, excuse me. This is the second time that's happened. I took a big old gulp of water. Well, anywho, Rogie, she's going to be 2 years old. I remember the countdown that we just had not too long ago. Yeah, 2 years old. There's a link in the description if you guys are interested in purchasing something for her. She's got her Rogi's second birthday party. My wife put this up for everybody. So if you guys are interested, check that out. All righty, guys. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation. I want to thank the members. I want to thank the mods. And I want to thank all your subscribers. And for now, let's bring on Miss Smith, Alina Smith. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. It's getting warm out here in Texas. Well, actually, the weather's been kind of crazy. It got cool, got warm, and now it's supposed to get cool again. I don't know. I mean, as long as it's not
I'm
a
over
sport.
here in Dallas, so I definitely get it.
There you go. There you go. You know, you're from Dallas. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I've found myself also on a documentary or two when it comes to the Bryan Kohberger case. How did you get yourself involved in one?
Well, I founded a group for this case right when it started, about a week into it, and it ended up being one of the biggest groups out there. It's actually the biggest group for this case, and I'm no longer a part of that. I'm a former admin for this group, but we followed this case, very closely, and during that time, we got scouted and approached by a lot of the media and a lot of the networks to discuss everything that was happening about the case and the happenings inside the group, and what was the discussions and the theories and who was in the group and stuff like that. And that's how it kind of happened with us becoming members of documentaries or people in the documentary, stuff like that.
Wow. And for me, my approach when they came up to me was that, hey, we want to look at a new way of well, this is what they told me, at least, that they wanted to look at a new way of folks getting information, especially when it comes to true crime. Was it kind of a similar approach to you when they approached you for it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because as we know, social media, Facebook, all of that, Reddit, everything, Instagram, TikTok, it's just the way that our lives are really being led right now. If you wake up, you're going right on social media. You're not checking CNN anymore. You're not checking the news anymore. You're checking your social media to find out what's going on, what's the weather, what's the news with politics or whatever. And they were learning, the industry was learning that social media was going to be where all of the people were flocking to start talking about this case, especially the people that were there that night or part of their happenings during the day or the days prior to the events that occurred that evening on the 13th. And they learned that if they want to follow the certain aspects of this, they needed to go to social media. And I really think even law enforcement was going the same avenue. They were heading right to social media to find any intuition of what was going on.
Yeah. And as I mentioned at the top of the show as well, I do think that when it comes to social media, when it comes to these Facebook groups, Reddit groups, YouTube channels, and the subscribers and the members and everybody in between, is that this is a modern way of involving yourself in a case. Back in the day before there was technology, people would meet together. There'd be town hall meetings. When it came to certain things like this, there'd be searches amongst the community. And oftentimes a person that was involved in said crime would find themselves at these venues or at these sites. And now, is this a way for somebody who have maybe perhaps committed a crime to get involved? And as you mentioned, your former page that you were a part of, you started this up pretty quickly. We're getting into the potential Pappa Rodger's connection here. How soon after the you guys open up the page does Pappa Rodger's show up?
To be honest, I can't speak on the exact day that he joined, but I do know that his first post was on November 29th.
Okay. So November 29th. And I do have some images, and then we'll be bringing those up. That's about 2 weeks after the murders. If somebody was involved in that, let's just say, and they wanted to get involved into the investigation in some form or fashion. I think that within that time frame seems about right. I would assume, maybe even earlier than that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he took that time, that 2 weeks. If that was him, he took that 2 weeks to kind of, watch the activities, see what's going on. Is anybody on him? Does anybody know that it's really him? And as every day kind of kept going and he kind of maybe realized he's kind of getting away with this, then maybe he was getting comfortable within his own skin and his own situation. And now it's like, open up his computer and let's see if I can play with this a little bit more.
Exactly. Before we get really into it, I'm going to say thank you to a couple of super chats. We have Gretchen Nario coming in with an intriguing subject. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Marnie, membership for a month. It's only been a month, but better late than never. 49er girl comes in with a $2 super chat saying happy Easter to everyone. And Jen gifted a $1 Drunk Turkey Show membership. Make sure you guys hit up those memberships. We do have a Discord, and in the Discord we have a conversation, but it's only for members. I'll be putting up the link in the description shortly afterwards. Alrighty, so this is Papa Rodger's Facebook profile picture. Do you know where this picture originated from?
I do. It's within the screenshots or the files. It's like a ZU or something. It's a military photo. It should be within the files somewhere in there. Do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, because I have the picture that you have here. View. All right.
Like XI, I think XI, and then next word is YU or YI or something like that. And then I even added in there the origin, like his profile, the person's profile in there, where it originated.
Huh. Interesting. X, YIXU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting picture. A lot of people, and I put Bryan Kohberger in a little makeshift Army uniform here. You know what? Let me put up the banner real quick before some folks get butthurt. There you go. He's presumed innocent until guilty, yada, yada, yada. So here we go. This looks like he could be his dad or his grandfather,
Yeah. I mean, it just seemed to me that it was somebody he was kind of emulating, like kind of maybe, I mean, I don't know any history on this soldier or, what his past is. I mean, there's another thing that a lot of people pointed out. If you look at his hat, right? If you look at his hat, you can see there's an upside down knife right where your cursor was. Yep. Go back right there.
Let me go to the other.
See it?
That star?
Nope. Go back. Right. You can see kind of outlined in white and it's upside down. So right where, yep. No, go back. Your cursor's on the handle. And now go to the left, and that's the blade. Your handle, now blade. Handle.
Oh, okay.
You see it?
Yeah, I see what people could be saying. I mean, it looks like there could be a V. I mean, I see it. I don't.
That's what a lot of people were pointing out. You can outline an actual knife right on his hat as well. But that's like
maybe, but
do on social media, they'll start ripping things apart, and pointing things out, and oh my God, there's an actual kabar in his hat. That's not a kabar. Let's be real. A kabar is a lot bigger.
Yeah,
like that. So,
I think more so than anything, I isn't this a Russian soldier?
Yes, Russian soldier.
So the crimes happen in Moscow, Idaho, Moscow,
right,
Moscow.
And that was a correlation as well.
I think that probably has something more. I don't know about the knife thing, but I mean, just imagine if you are Bryan Kohberger and he is Papa Rodger's. How lucky are you getting that this image looks like you and also represents a Russian soldier, and you're going to go take somebody's? I mean, it's a pretty crazy. Right. And imagine if you're not Bryan Kohberger and you're Papa Rodger's, and a lot of people are accusing you of being, the murderer. or Bryan Kohberger, and then all of a sudden the guy gets arrested and he looks just like the picture that you
I
put
know.
up.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I just always feel there are no coincidences, but I don't know. It was just too similar. And that's just one similarity here. We haven't even opened up the rest of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely. Let's see. And so these are just, just images.
Yeah, I like that one.
It kind of looks like, it looks like, hey, this is when he graduated. This is when he retired. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yes. That's right.
So this is
That
the
was his
image.
first that was his first post.
November 29th. Not really anything about the crime itself. Was this posted to the Facebook group?
I can't say 100%. I believe it was, yes.
Interesting. Now I know some folks are saying that it's not Papa Rodgers, it's not Bryan Kohberger, and I'm not sure yet. I think that there's something to the potential of him being from Indiana, and I think there's something to the fact that he got pulled over in Indiana a couple of times too, right?
Right.
And to me, I don't know. I was watching Gray Hughes Investigates. The guy, he's been on the show, and he pulled up Chat GPT, and he had a conversation with Chat
Yes.
Gray, and it was AI says 95% chance it's him.
Right. But then you had Howard Bum on last night, and he said that I don't remember any of this, and I've read pretty much every single document for this case, and he said that both prosecution and state have said that he is not. And I have not seen that anywhere.
I haven't seen it either. I think what he may have been referring to was the fact that the state and prosecution have indicated that he wasn't stalking them. They both have agreed that the term stalking, as far as how it's defined by Idaho laws, wasn't what Bryan Kohberger was doing. Because in order to stalk in Idaho, the victims would have had to have been aware of his presence, because they would have either had to have been in fear, annoyed, those type of things. And if they didn't know he was there, they can't have those feelings. And so it just doesn't fit the statute. But, I think that's what he meant. And I think the defense has said that there's no connection.
Yeah.
But I don't think this would be considered a connection to the victims if he was Papa Rodgers. What do you think?
I absolutely do think that he would be considered a connection, because hold on, I think.
Well, you think that if Bryan Kohberger was Papa Rodgers, that somehow is a connection to the victims?
Yes, because for him to go to that house, he had to have known. A guy can't go into a house and maybe he's going to approach, wrestlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would he know that he can take them down? He had to have known who's going to be inside that house, right? He had to have some inclination on who's living there, the residents.
I would assume so.
Football players.
According to the prosecution, he was there 23 times up until November 7th. I'm curious to how many times he was there after November 7th, between November 7th and November 13th, outside of the one time they're alleging that he was there November 13th. So yeah, he was out there. One of the times we know he was out there within 100 meters for over an hour. So I would believe that he's done some surveilling, and he would understand who may or may not be visiting the house.
Right. And then there's also the graphs of him or of Papa Rodgers showing how on the 12th, I believe, 11th or 12th, he was looking at the activity for that house, which is in the files as well. So why would he even be checking that prior to the 13th?
Run that by me one more time. What did he do?
So I thought I had it in front of me, but I don't. He was checking the activity of that
Google
house.
Trends.
Yeah, the trends for that house on the 12th. Prior, I think the 10th, 11th,
Papa
and 12th.
Rodgers?
He showed the graph. How would he have that graph how would he have access to that graph with the dates on there if he didn't check, if he posted that, the dates are on there, but if he posted that, post, like
Uh-huh.
after the crimes, but he had the screenshot from the 10th. You know, he was checking something. I feel that he was checking ahead of time.
Interesting. I'm gonna see if I can find that because I do have all of the screenshots here. I have them in no particular order. I just outside of the first couple, and then I put one at the very end. But outside of those, I have the rest of them in no particular order. And so this one was on December 20th. This says here, somebody named Bianca says, per Mr. Goncalves' statement, Kaylee's injuries were worse than Maddie's. And Papa Rodger says, so you concluded that she was the target based on wounds. Could the knife be dull at that point? And that is why the tearing was as described. Now, I think that Kaylee was probably the second victim based on what we know now. So I don't know. I mean, not everything he's going to put in there is going to be 100% accurate if he is Bryan Kohberger.
Right. Oh, yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
He's going to want to, like, for instance, I believe he talks about a white vehicle. He owns a white vehicle, so he doesn't really want people looking in his direction.
But he
So
calls the vehicle a red herring.
Exactly. So that might be the reason why, is because that's something that ties to him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, let's see. The next one is it's him on December 15th. He puts out a question stating that the killer has a sexual dysfunction. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody responds, yes. He also likes his steak medium. And Papa Rodger's first thought is that your first thought? And, you know, to me, when I read, I haven't read them all. I've only read a handful of them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I've read so far, it does sound like this person does come from a criminal justice background.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. And then when we go to like his survey, and then, so I have all of the survey questions in those files, and I took the survey myself. And then we have some of them, you know, side by side with his questions that he would pose in that group. And they were almost verbatim. And that's where it really kind of resonated with all of us. Like, oh my God, he's literally asking the exact same questions that he posed in his survey about what would you do if you committed a crime, or how would you, commit a perfect crime, whatever his, however he, put that survey out. But now he's asking those same questions in this group. And I mean, and then there was like, the way he wrote, he had a specific way of writing, and I can't say exactly what it was, but I'm going to give you an example, and it might even be the exact one. But like, you can write a word like, you can write a phrase like others, like use the word others, and the word others can have an S at the end, and then it cannot, and the phrase can still make sense. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
You can say others were there, and then this might not make sense, but then you can still say other were there, and then the sentence would still make sense, right? Either you have that S at the end or you don't on that particular word. The sentence would still make sense. It just depends on how that person writes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the way that Papa Rodger wrote, he kept the S at the end of this particular word. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Bryan Kohberger put the S at the end as well on a word that doesn't particularly need that S. Like a normal, like a regular person probably wouldn't put that S at the end, but for whatever reason, Bryan Kohberger did put the S at the end. And
is it that like whilst or whilst word or something like that?
No, it was a common word like others. I don't know why others is sticking out. I really think it could have been others. And I'd have to really sit back and like read through it all, but it stuck out for me like a lot. And that was another thing that I kind of like realized that it was very similar. Like his writing pattern.
Yeah.
It was, it was spot on with how this Papa Rodger was, presenting himself as well.
Interesting. I hope we come across it. I'm interested to see what word it was.
Yeah. I mean, it was in the survey.
Interesting. All right. I do have some of the survey questions up, and all these images that I got were from your Facebook page that you currently a part of. What is that called again?
Oh, Idaho, I just changed it, so I'd have to like remind myself, but it's like Idaho for Justice for Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana.
I think I have it open right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick. There you go. It is a private group.
Idaho Trial Discussions and Updates, Justice for Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm in there as well. I don't comment too much just because I don't want like the what do you call it? Distraction. Sometimes people get distracted when I get into places. And
it's really small right now, and it's small because I have like very like a lot of unique people in there, family, members of the industry, and just very like members of the other group, but they were like high, like members that were very, into this case, that were very highly respected, not just like trolling around and trying to cause issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get you. And so these images here are part of your Facebook group. If you go to albums, they populate. So these aren't like my screenshots. I know it says Vanessa wife at the top. So before people start trying to figure out who that is, to me, it's part of this screenshot. So just wanted to.
Who's Vanessa's wife?
I have no idea. All right. So Bryan Kohberger, Papa Rodgers, he's one of the first persons to go out there and say that there's a knife sheath that's been left behind.
Yes.
Now, his logic behind it is the fact that law enforcement were looking for a specific type of knife, and that was it.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of the thing is like they thought he was the first one that came up with that. And, I'd love to give it to him. I really would. But a lot of people came up with that. A lot of people thought that maybe they knew that it was a Ka-Bar knife because maybe a part of it broke off because this was such a violent crime, and maybe that's how they knew what type they were looking for, I did hear prior to this being put on by Papa Rodger that maybe something was left behind and it could be like the sheath, right? So, I mean, I honestly, just to be open to all options here, yeah, it was very interesting that he brought that up, but it was mentioned maybe a handful of times elsewhere as well. Just to be fair,
Yeah. Just I'll be honest. He puts out a frame of thoughts that would lead you to believe that, okay, it could be the reason why they believe that this is the knife. So this is some of it. He's asking another person which hand that the person would have walked in with the knife, and the person goes, "I don't freaking know. Why would you even ask that?"
Mm-hmm.
And Papa Rodgers goes, "So a knife wielding person walked from where and entered the house, and at what point? At what point with a large knife in hand?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, I wish I would have put these in order.
I know, me too. There's so many. I mean, I worked on it. I tried. I put some in different files, but there were so many. And as soon as people found out I was on the show, I just kept getting more and more and more on top of the ones I already have. And I mean,
really?
Too many.
Yeah. So this one's on December 8th, and this is a comment that he had. So somebody's going through issues, right? Or possibilities in the case.
Mm-hmm.
And Papa Rodgers says, excellent. I mean, this comes off as somebody who is a teacher.
Yes. So excellent. That right there. He says that to his students in the same manner. And I can't see right now, but there's no punctuation at the end, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that was one of the, and I know, excuse me, and I know it's not really a big deal that there's no punctuation, but that was one thing that's kind of similar to how he would respond to his students. And I do have a couple of copies of his answers to his students on their papers, and he doesn't necessarily always use punctuation to them as well. That was just something that stuck out, and the word excellent.
Yeah. Interesting. To me, I mean, excellent comes off, and when you read what it was that the person was commenting on,
Yep.
it sounds like a teacher.
Right. Exactly. And that was one of them that stuck out to me a lot as well.
Somebody asking, how long do you think it took? He says 15 minutes. I think it was closer to 11, but again, he's not going to be 100% accurate.
Right.
And I'm not entirely sure he knows at this point exactly how long it took him.
I was just going to say that too. How does he know the exact minute right now? He's still I think he's still on cloud number. He's still very euphoric and, feeling all of it. It's only been 2 weeks, 3 weeks at this point, right?
I mean, the only thing that he probably can determine based on the time is if there was a clock in his vehicle because his phone was off. And, when he left his car and then when he got back to his car, I mean, he pulls past the Linda Lane camera at 4:07 and it's not until 4:20 when the vehicle is passing in front. So that's about 13 minutes right there. So, I mean, I think right there, 15 minutes, 13 minutes. I mean, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So this goes back into this. He goes, how did the killer hold the knife prior to entering the scene, in your opinion? And this is what he's going back to as far as why he had a knife sheath. And then Dustin's going on, and it's crazy because somebody goes on to say if it ends up being that there's a knife sheath left behind, I'll come out here and eat crow and all this other stuff. And
I know. I know. It was crazy. It was so spot on to all of it.
It was.
Too much.
Let's see. Oh, so his thought process is that they knew they were looking for a K-bar knife from day one.
Correct.
How the hell would he know that? Because because right here it just says, he says you wouldn't be able to tell that from a crime scene. So Dustin is coming back saying maybe it's from the outline of the guard from the K-bar knife. Okay, maybe. I mean, that's a possibility. That or a broken blade. Many other things you can mention it.
Right.
But he said that you can't tell that from the crime scene. So he knew that they knew from the crime scene that they were looking for a K-bar knife. That's interesting.
I know. And I mean, that's where it all kind of that's where everybody's eyebrows started to get, raised and antennas started to perk. Who's this guy? He started to scare everybody, and this exact thread with Dustin is where everybody started to this is where all the reports came in. Do you guys see who this is? Where he said which hand, that was the which hand comment from him was where that was the moment for me personally when I was like, all right, I got to keep an eye on this guy. Who is he? Just whatever was said in there just made everybody on edge and keep their eyes on that guy, on Pappa Rodger during that thread with Dustin, whatever, however that was perceived by just not, one or two people. It was by hundreds or tens of thousands of people at that moment, scared the shit out of them.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, he's pretty confident that police were aware that they were looking for a K-bar knife at the crime scene. So let's just say the sheath wasn't there. How does he know that that's what the case was? Because, I mean, it's not like law enforcement came out and said, hey, this is the case. I mean, a coroner took in the body, they looked at it, they cleaned it. A lot of things would have happened by the time that they had their press conference. And a lot of things would have happened by the time that it was reported that they were out there looking for a K-bar knife. And so it's one thing to say they were looking for one early, and another thing to say that they were able to determine from the crime scene and be accurate about that, because that's true. They were able to determine from the crime scene that there was a K-bar knife used. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
That is interesting. Let's see. Since it's so this is the same conversation he's having with Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
And Dustin goes, so since I commented on your post with my opinion on the discussion board, I should be accepting of your weird and creepy questions. Asking if you carry a knife is weird and creepy. Pappa Rodger's asking me questions like which hand did he hold the knife in, and do you carry a knife with no context? It's just strange. I'm only responding to you. Why would you even bring up the killer? And so here he goes. He goes, well, who knows? Finding a left behind sheath seems like a stretch, though. Why? They are very specific about the weapon and very vague about every other detail. Well, I mean, you got to be vague about certain details.
This is kind of where it like stumped me a little, because if this is him, wouldn't he not want to press that as much, like kind of drop it, you know? Because this is his big fuck up, right?
It could be.
Or is he using this as to find out how bad of a fuck up it is?
I mean, at the end of the day, it was done. Whether he brings it up or not, it's not going to make a difference as far as do law enforcement have it or not. And so I think that maybe if this is him, I'm not saying it is. I'm still skeptical on that. I'll be 100% honest. I'm skeptical on it.
I know. I mean, I am too. I'm not 100% either. I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, but I will say this: if it was him, I don't know.
Okay, well,
like, I think his narcissism, if you know, maybe perhaps his narcissism about to get things right is overpowering him. I mean, there's some other persons that have been out there that have committed crimes similar to Bryan Kohberger, like BTK and other persons who are serial killer type individuals, and they go out of their way to write to the media or whoever to take credit, to make sure nobody else takes credit, to fix certain things or narratives that may have happened because of their own narcissism and their own belief and thought that they're too smart and they're never going to get caught.
Right.
Maybe that has something to do with it.
I mean, I agree with all of that. It's just the pattern of how this all like kind of, you know, and how he was posting all the time and talking about the case and talking about the crime, how it was committed, having questions about, you know, the knife, the car. Once the car was getting really dug into, he didn't want us to pay attention to that anymore. You know, this and that. But then on December 30th, on the 29th, right, 30th, when he was removed at, I think it was like 7:10 p.m. Mm-hmm. So it was the 29th because he was officially arrested in the nighttime of the 30th. So he was removed and then immediately, like quickly, like ran as fast as he could and made another Facebook page. It was like Moscow murders, anything goes, right? And he made that page within like 5 minutes. And the pictures for the page, like the background, was mostly Maddie. And, but then that night, like, what was it, 2 or 3 a.m., he gets arrested. Well, Pappa Rodger never posts again. Wouldn't you think now that the defendant is arrested that Pappa Rodger would have even more questions on all the stuff that he was already questioning all of us about?
You would think he'd be gloating about the knife sheath being found, but a bunch of things, yeah.
And now everything that he just asked, these pages or that page about, some of it is coming to fruition. So don't you think he wants to go and stand on the stage and be like, hey, I was right. Remember, like how he'd be like, excellent, and all that. And when things would go bad, like when he called somebody adult or fight me, and then we have people that were friends with him said that he actually would say to them when he would get aggravated or frustrated, he would say, fight me. That was actually his, like how he would speak. And dolt is a term that they use in Pennsylvania when they want to call somebody stupid. So, and now he's gone. Never posts again. Not another comment again.
What about, I mean, it obviously could have been a fake account, but I remember seeing a screenshot floating around that he said something about catching 32 pounds of trout. And that was after Bryan Kohberger's arrest. Was that not real?
No. And so I included the explanation actually I have, so you can tell when it's real or not. So because he created that page, he was the admin, and it'll say right next to his name, admin. Yeah. And then that person that wrote that they didn't have that admin next to them. So that's how you could tell it was a fake person.
Interesting. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, anybody can use that picture and put up a name and say that they're Papa Rodger. And yeah, I mean, they
But
can
they
create
weren't
a
the
fake
admin
profile.
because they didn't make the page, so they couldn't sign in under that profile and have that, badge under them, because that's different. They signed in as, just a regular, they made an account with that name, with that picture, but they weren't the admin of that page. That's different.
That is different. So here he's actually talking about to Eric, and he's saying, Eric says something about it's possible. I wish I knew what he was referring to. And then Papa Rodger goes, I agree. And I will agree. And then he does use punctuation there. There is a chance of anything. And then there's another period there. Eric Sparrow goes, I don't know if they have a suspect or not. So I think that's what they're talking about, is the lack of a suspect. But I do know that sometimes in these cases, they do have a suspect or not enough evidence to make an arrest. They don't point the finger at that person for them to take off and run. And Papa Rodger says, you can't run from this. I don't know. These things are too bizarre, is what Eric says. And so nothing too crazy there. And Jenna asks, how long do you think? I'm not familiar with Jenna, but go
She's
Jenna.
in our little group.
Jenna asks, how long do you think? And Papa responds 15 minutes. And that's his only response to this entire thread.
Because I feel like he's like, I got that answer. I know. Next.
So this one here says, this is again back with Dustin. Papa Rodger asks, do you carry a knife? Dustin
Can
says,
I just interrupt you? I don't mean to interrupt you.
ahead.
So remember how I said this Dustin conversation was one of our, that was the biggest one with this whole Papa Rodger, and where everything kind of came to fruition. That's the one that scared everybody, with the possibility that he could be, the defendant and all of that. Dustin has disappeared from social media. We have tried to find him ever since this happened, and we really just can't ever. Well, I mean, there have been efforts several months after, Bryan was arrested, and a lot of people have tried, and I wonder if this scared him even off of, social media for a little while as well.
It may have. I mean, he says, this is the one where he says, if we find out, so he goes, how in the hell would I know that? I'm sorry, nobody is buying this sheath theory of yours. If we find out one day I'm wrong, I will gladly eat crow. Papa asks him, do you carry a knife? Dustin says, dude, give it a rest. You sound like a psycho. Papa says, remember, I made the original post and you have gone down this path.
Yeah. I mean,
same one.
It's like he's holding him to it.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, the evidence released, the murder weapon has been consistent as a large fixed blade knife. This leads me to believe they found the sheath. This evidence was released prior to the autopsies.
So pretty much that's one of his very first posts.
All right, let me try to go back in time, because I remember there was some news outlets that law enforcement were searching different places, and they were looking for a large fixed blade knife. But was that before the press conferences and the autopsies? I don't remember.
Were they searching for the knife prior to the autopsy? I mean, I'm sure they were searching for the knife. They found the sheath right when they found the bodies.
Right. I'm just trying to remember if that information came out before the autopsies. Because I know that Ethan had a second autopsy done according to the PCA, and that was done a little bit later. But I do recall that there was a press conference where I think it was Fry who mentioned that all the autopsies had been done.
So from everything I can remember at this point, I think this is where I meant that I don't think anything has been released about the knife. I mean, I think they knew that it was a knife because they knew the victims were not shot, we knew that. And plus all the hearsay, we have to remember all the hearsay. And that's what, when in the beginning of your show, this is the this is the whole thing with social media. This is what everybody was chatting about. This is what all the chatter was about, and all this. They knew that it was done with a knife, so it wasn't hard. It wasn't going to be hard from even him, especially if he was right there 15 minutes away, to surmise that maybe this is what they're looking for, that a knife is kind of how to expand the thoughts and theories about this crime, if that makes sense. And I'm almost positive it was mentioned on court TV or something like that about a sheath. I really do. Like, he wasn't the first. I know that.
Deb says November 16, 2022, Moscow ID police search for Rambo-style combat K-bar knife in investigation of University of Idaho student assessed stores manager. So it was very early.
Oh, see?
And the
Yeah.
autopsies were done November 17th, according to Wise Child. I'm going to take you guys. Deb, I trust
The 17th
Wise Child.
is correct, because we do know that the coroner, she had other engagements, so they did take a few days.
Gotcha. Yeah, but I mean, even at that, there can be an initial investigation and an initial look at the bodies, those type of things, and so, but if the autopsies did, if that did come out before, and that they were looking for a specific type of knife, I mean, there's other reasons other than the knife sheath as to why they would be looking for a specific type of knife.
Well, and even just saying sheath, like I don't think every knife has a sheath, right? And not everybody that would carry a knife would, like really have it in a sheath, right? Like, and I would think, like, if you're going to go and commit an act, like maybe they're not really being like very, put together, like, oh, let me put it inside a perfect little container and put it right here, like maybe this was a crime of passion at this point. We don't know, right? We didn't know if this was an attack of like last minute kind of thing. They just grabbed a knife from the kitchen, right? So it was kind of like I think that was the other thing that we kind of all like raised our eyebrows, like, well, how did you know that there was even a sheath involved?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's he made it seem like they were super focused in on one knife. I mean, a Rambo style, K-bar knife style knife doesn't sound super specific. You know what I mean? It just sounds like that's the type of knife that they're looking for. This goes on to continue to say that Papa Rodger says he's only responding to what he had said, and he thought it was odd that Dustin would bring up the killer. Dustin goes, "Sorry, I trashed your stupid sheath theory, and you couldn't take it." And then Papa Rodger goes, "Why are you so angry?" Dustin goes, "Why do you communicate like a serial killer?" That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Does anyone else wonder how the blood ran down the base of the house? How does that happen? He puts gravity. So he's a little bit of a smart ass.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we should give them dignity they deserve, and not theories on where their bodies were. This is a discussion case. You are participating by choice.
And that to me sounds like a teacher.
That does.
Mm-hmm. Very much.
You're participating. Participating is that phrase does sound very teacherish.
Right.
We don't know if he was actually after 4 people. Papa goes, Ethan didn't live there, so that could be a variable. Kaylee came back for the night, but had recently lived there, alluding that the person probably, even though she had came back for the night, he was aware of her because he'd been watching for some time.
Did Papa say that or somebody else? I can't see.
Papa says, so Jillian says Kaylee came back for the night, and then Papa says, but had recently lived there.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
And then Jillian says, yeah, but wasn't supposed to be there. But the fact that, so what he's trying to allude there, but had recently lived there, is that the person may have been watching this place for some time. Exactly. To have known that she had recently lived there.
Right. I agree. But he could have just been reading in the group too, like, just to be fair, like he could just get that from the information that's out there, right?
It could be.
Here we go with like the questions that are very similar to the survey questions.
I agree. Date of the killing was chosen on purpose. Thoughts. And then he goes 4 weeks in and no suspects. What is the motive? How long do we think the killer was in the house? These are on different dates, December 10th, 15th, 11th, the 12th. What do we think is the height and weight of the killer? Now, this question here at the end, there was a lot of people who were talking about somebody being seen in the house. I know for a fact that it was out there before the PCA and Bryan Kohberger's arrest because I got emails about it from those that were talking about it on Reddit, and I have an idea of where it may have came from. If he knew that he had seen somebody, do you think his height and weight might be something that could be a rumor mill in the area?
What do you mean by that?
So if people on Reddit were conversing about the person inside the house, right? Let's just assume, and it's just an assumption, that Dylan told other people, or maybe was overheard telling other people, whether it be like, on the phone telling her mom and dad, or, her telling her sorority sisters, or whatever the case may be. I would assume that that kind of information probably would travel fast within the community between Moscow and Pullman. And my thoughts are, if that rumor is spreading around that somebody saw someone inside the house, and Bryan Kohberger obviously maybe perhaps thought maybe somebody may have saw him. Maybe that is confirmation that he was seen. Do you think he's putting up questions about height and weight to get a gauge?
Yes. I 100% think that he is putting out feelers to see what information is out there. Maybe to change his appearance, to, maybe, that was the 12th, and he left 3 days later, maybe change their map, like where their plan on how they were going to drive across the country, how they were going to be, if they were going to be seen. Maybe he needs to wear a hat, all of that. I think, and this is all, maybe his dad's like, I'll be there soon, and he's like, oh shit, I gotta, make sure I'm planning for this drive and if I'm going to be seen or not and recognized.
Yeah, I definitely. And, you make an interesting point. This is right before he also left, to Pennsylvania. Very interesting. Let's see.
Planning.
So here's a little bit more about Papa Rodger's explaining his knife sheath theory. He says they are looking for a very specific knife. Curious, why are you debating the sheath theory so hard? Who would carry a large knife exposed? Sheaths are meant for belts. See, that's the first thing that a lot of people would have assumed as well. The sheath is meant for a belt.
Right. A lot of people think that he did have it clipped and it got ripped or tugged. However, if he had that full Dickies suit on, I think they do have a loophole, and those loopholes are very thin, I actually went and looked at one to make sure, and they're not very tough. Like, there's Dickies. I actually have the jean Dickie full suit here. The jean one is a lot tougher than the cotton fabric one. The cotton fabric one, I actually pulled it, and that, in a struggle, that can rip. But the jean one is a lot tougher. That's one theory. Maybe it ripped, and that's how the sheath kind of fell, and he never thought that would happen, and that's why it got left there, and he didn't realize until after, because that was one thing he just did not plan for, because he thought that was secure.
Very much possible. I tend to believe that because there's a holder on those Dickie jumpsuit that you're talking about, but it's for like a flashlight or something that you can put in there.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily certain the loop could get into it, and so the guard itself would be the only thing that would hold it into that loop, and so if he had that and not a belt, he would have had to have carried it in his hand. And Papa Rodgers makes a point that it probably isn't exposed when you're walking to the house, which is you're putting a lot of thought into it, and possibly that maybe Papa Rogers did do that, put a lot of thought into something like this. It's an odd thing to think of as well, because as you mentioned, I mean, you could walk in and somebody could be awake, somebody could be there, and now you have to take the knife out of the sheath,
Right.
instead of already having it in your hand.
Right.
So on December 8th, he says that the white car is irrelevant. So this is just the day after that they bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to people, asking for a fight and saying law enforcement is no closer to solving this than they were 30 days ago. This is on December 30th, the day that he allegedly left to Pennsylvania. And then Papa Rogers is wiped from Facebook. I'm assuming that's right after Bryan Kohberger's arrest.
Yes.
Let's see. Did the killer stop at 4 victims out of exhaustion, convenience, or lack of knowledge?
Are you asking me or?
Oh, that's what he's asking. I
Yeah.
wonder. I mean, we do know that there were surviving victims, so
Yeah. Well, something like just this question alone, like, do you see how kind of like soft this question is? And then if you go back to that screenshot you had right before this, right? So this is December 8th, right? And then we have that December 13th, which is 5 days later. And we also know in 2 days, he's leaving with his dad. Do you see how aggressive it kind of changes? Like,
yeah.
how quickly his kind of demeanor goes from, hey, I'm just trying to figure more stuff out. Because, I mean, he kind of feels, I got time here. If this is him, right? We don't know if it is. Like, he's still asking questions. Maybe he still feels like a little cushion here before his dad gets there, before he has to drive across the country, before he's got to go home and face his mother, his sisters. But now he's getting a little anxious and kind of mean with the fight me. And I need answers. I need to know, because I'm about to travel across the country. Am I in trouble here? I'm not in trouble,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. This one says, Papa Roger, I feel like blood ran down a few places, but it has been suppressed. The kitchen was dripping in blood. That was from an image. There was an image that was put out there, and you could see something dripping, but it's not blood. I don't know what it is. It could be stain. I mean, maybe it is blood, but I don't think so.
I feel like it's luminol, because I have pictures where it's like, I think the day of, like the 13th, 14th, and it is not there. And then when they have the forensics team go inside, and then I have pictures right after, then we have the dripping pictures. And I have pictures of them really working the kitchen good.
Yeah. See, if he would have gotten dressed, it may have been just outside of that kitchen or just inside there. If he would have changed his clothing, maybe if there is some sort of blood splatter or anything, it could be from him taking off the jumpsuit and any type of debris from that jumpsuit flinging off could have occurred.
You think he changed inside?
I don't think so. I think it was right outside, but it could have been inside. It was cold. So.
Yeah, but like if he's a criminology student and he's in school for all that stuff, I mean, that's almost like 101. Why, like, if he's changing inside, he's shedding, right? He's shedding DNA. Yeah. He could shed even an arm hair. I mean, he should know better than that. He definitely did it outside where the wind can blow it away. And I mean, that would have sealed the deal right there too if he did that inside. I think. I mean, I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, they would have had to have found it. And this is the same police department that used some stools to secure the back sliding glass door.
I know.
And that's one of the things that I found so confusing, because that ended up being the exit point. And so the suspect ran out that direction. That's probably the point where he's probably the most exhausted. He's probably sweated the most. If there is something that's going to fling off of him, like sweat, hair, any of those type of things, it's probably on his way out versus on his way in. And yet you use stools that were on the way out to secure the door instead of processing them.
Right.
That's one of my pet peeves that I didn't like.
Yeah. And he left it open.
Well, he left it open the entire time. You know, I've said that for years. I've said it for years. I said Bryan Kohberger left the back sliding glass door open. I'm not Papa Rogers. I'm not the killer either. But I said that the back sliding glass door was left open, and I even said that I believe that he did that in efforts to not put or leave DNA behind. Every time he, closes it, opens it, whatever, that's more of an opportunity for him to leave DNA behind.
Right. To grab a handle or even,
Right.
and it adds time, it adds seconds to have to open a door. It's easier escape.
Exactly. Plus, even in his May 2020 writings about, crime scene investigating, he wrote that to check the doorknob because on the way out, if this was some sort of serial killer, or et cetera, they could have left DNA behind on the doorknob, things of that nature. And so for him to leave that open and him to know that, to me, it adds to the means. Means being, it's more means is part of that criminal triangle, right? You have motive, means, and
Right.
opportunity. Means is more than just capable of wielding a knife. It's also knowing to leave the back sliding glass door open, knowing how not to leave your DNA behind at a crime scene. Now, I understand he left the knife sheath behind with his DNA on it, but I don't think that was intentional. Or do you think he did that on purpose as a calling
Absolutely
card?
not. No, I think he's kicking himself in the ass every 5 minutes for that. Every time he closes his eyes, he's going, fuck.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't necessarily believe that this wasn't going to be a situation that wasn't going to turn into him getting caught. I do think that given the fact that there's the possibility that somebody, maybe a family member, dimed him out, and as far as his purchase of this K-bar knife, I think that would have probably done him in eventually.
I agree.
It just may have taken a little bit longer, but
Mhm.
I think he would have gotten caught eventually.
I agree. And I think if that wasn't going to be it, he would have tried something similar again, because if this is him, as Papa Rodger, you could tell the arrogancy in him.
I agree. And plus, he was looking at K-bar knives, right? It doesn't say that he purchased one after the murders. It says that he was looking at some.
Right. And we surmise it was a replacement, right?
Right. Now, it could have been a replacement in case somebody came knocking, or it could have been a replacement for another crime. Now, if he didn't purchase it, I'm interested in thinking, this is me thinking out loud, is the fact that he didn't purchase it because maybe perhaps he got pulled over twice in Indiana, and now he's thinking that
Right.
he's being watched. Maybe that's the
Exactly.
reason that prevents him from purchasing the knife again.
That's a great, there you go. I didn't even think of that. There you go. Right?
And that also tells me, it also tells me that he didn't have access to the knife, meaning that either that or the knife was completely destroyed in the crime, and that he couldn't use it for the next crime.
Where do you think the knife is?
Probably at the bottom of a river that he
Snake
can't get to.
River?
Probably.
I agree.
I would say that they're looking at that specific area. As far as the PCA goes, there's some camera footage of him near that river. It doesn't. I don't know if they have anything of him going to the river, but he's at a Walgreens, which is very close to the river, and I think they even bring that up and highlight that.
Right.
But because part of me thought maybe he was like Israel Keys. He buried it somewhere, like with his kill kit, and he can go back and get to it and use it again. However, I think that the fact that he was looking for another one tells me that the first one was either unreachable or it's inoperable. It's
Right.
destroyed, one or the other.
Right. And the easiest thing here is like, if he didn't do it and he purchased this knife, like, how about we just can just put this to bed. Just give us the knife. Where's the knife? Give us the knife. Right?
Yeah,
And
well,
let's just be done with this. Where's the knife? And we'll leave you alone, buddy. Like, just give us the knife. You bought it, so where is it? Right?
and he ain't gonna testify either. I mean, the fact that Ann Taylor mentioned, infringing on his right to remain silent in the last hearing, tells me that they have no intention of bringing him onto the stand. And so, with that being said, he's the only person that can say it was stolen, it was lost, it was destroyed. And if he doesn't go up there and testify, then he is at the mercy of whatever it is that the state's theory is of what happened to it, which at this point is that he destroyed it after committing a quadruple homicide.
If it was stolen or lost, that should have already been in discuss, like that should already be, in part of these documents and in discuss, like that should be part of, like when they first, arrested him or spoke to, his lawyers. Like,
Yeah.
we understand he bought this knife, but listen, he lost this knife a long time ago, and we're going to prove that he lost this knife, right? Give us something, but
Yeah.
no, nothing.
Yeah. There's
Where's
that and the rest of his kill kit. Let's see.
right?
Papa Rogers goes on to say, that isn't a bedroom light. What does that look like to you? The hall light. It could be a hall light or the third bathroom floor. I'm not familiar with what light he's talking about.
Oh,
Let's
there's
see.
a picture of it. In
Is
there.
that the one that said the
You actually
bedroom
showed
hall?
it already.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah. I saw
Yeah.
it.
So there's a picture with the 3, and then it's labeled like bedroom,
Yeah.
bathroom, something. Yeah. And then in the third picture, you could actually see it says no media available.
Yeah.
So it's the TV. And this is where we believe, because remember when they raided his apartment, they found the Fire Stick.
Yeah.
So this is where we believe he pulled the Fire Stick out of the TV because
Oh,
they
you
watched.
think
Yeah,
that fire stick is the victim's fire stick?
I do.
Interesting.
And because, like it's not normal, especially like a, college student or, just to see the TV saying no media. I mean, I'd have to look exactly what it says, but you could tell that it doesn't say something normal. And when I
Could it
asked other people about it, they said that when they pulled their Fire Stick out, it displays something very similar.
That's interesting. It could be that you make a great point. It could be something that was plugged into an HDMI cable. I don't know if maybe they take the modem, if they're looking at their modem or their router for the internet service to do a download. I know that Steve mentioned something to the effect that Kohberger's phone touched his Wi-Fi. I've talked to him about it recently, and it sounds like he may have been mistaken. But now that everybody's watching, I have locked down a date with Steve to do an interview. Me and Steve are going to be doing
Awesome.
a comprehensive interview. It's going to be happening in a few days. It's not going to be a live interview. It's going to be one that is recorded and then put out there after the fact. But we do have a date locked in. I should be airing this video out or this interview probably by the end of next week. So just to kind of give everybody a heads up on that. Date, time, everything's been locked. We anticipate this to be the most comprehensive interview on the Idaho 4 case, from everything from the beginning to up till now, everything, and transparency. And so you don't want to miss it. Like, subscribe, notification, ring that bell, because it's going to be an interview that you probably aren't going to be able to see anywhere else that he's done. So I'm excited for the opportunity to interview him and get his opinions and thoughts and things of that nature on this case.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All righty, let's get back. So here this continues to go to say that Papa Rogers, day 39 killer. This is in November or December 22nd. The killer is not in the victim's immediate circle. This isn't something that I think is too out there. I had said this November 29th. I maybe even earlier than that. I said that the killer is not in the immediate circle of the victims, and the reason behind that is because the closer they are, the easier they are to find. You know what I mean? If it was the ex-boyfriend, he was with them that night, he was at the corner club, they'd recently broken up, it wouldn't be that hard to follow those lines. And if he had done it, there would be blood somewhere, maybe in his house. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, there's no blood in Bryan Kohberger's house. The difference is Jack DeCour isn't a PhD student in criminal justice who's studied and learned how to not contaminate a crime scene. Big difference there, right?
I can tell you another difference.
What is that?
Jack DeCour didn't have 6 weeks plus to clean everything up, right?
That's true.
With knowledge in which chemicals and access to those specific chemicals that not an everyday person has access to, right?
That is true. That is true.
And that goes for everybody else that was pulled into this, excuse me, like, all the other Jacks and Jakes and everybody else, right? they didn't have the quickness, or they didn't have this time to, clean everything up and use, specific things that, the everyday person has, or like he had access to. Nobody else has access to that. He could go to his, his lab at the college and, open up a door and grab a little bit of something and clean it up. And
There was something that Ann Taylor mentioned in one of her hearings. She said that there was no blood in the car, that there was something sprayed in it, but not blood. I mean, I don't know what that sprayed stuff was, but I can only assume that given Bryan Kohberger's studies and things of that nature, it's probably some sort of cleaning agent or detectant of some sort to detect blood. And, that could be one of the main reasons why they want the car thrown out, because at the end of the day, they wanted the car thrown out, and that included the fact that there was no DNA in the car, which tells me that whatever they did find in the car was big enough to say, all right, either he cleaned it up, or it's like a manifesto, or it's something that is so important that they rather have it thrown out, including the fact that there was no blood DNA found in the car. To me, at least.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Papa Rodger says the killer is not a student. Thoughts?
Right. He was trying, I think, there to gauge like how, like how much they knew about, because, when a person commits a crime, they'll always put them inside like a category, like, all right, we think this person's between the ages of 18 and 22, 25 and 30, right? So this, I think he's trying to figure again, like, do they think he's one of them? Same thing,
Right.
What was the date on that one? I can't see.
That one is December 22nd as well. The 21st, he asks the question, can someone post actual evidence showing where the bodies were found? Like, how would anybody know that?
He actually made a graph. He made his own picture.
No, I know he did that, but I mean, how would anybody have actual evidence showing where they were?
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's getting close too. I mean, he's around his family, right? And this is also during that time that we know he was going to these restaurants in Pennsylvania where he was asking to be seated away from everybody. Do you remember that? So he's under some pressure. He's feeling some sort of way, and he's putting very bizarre feelers out there, maybe.
All right. So this is what he put on there as far as what he thought the placement was and why. So he's saying that he thinks that Ethan was in the living room close to the hallway on the second floor, and that Xana was in the bedroom with her head close to the wall. Man, could he be wrong trying to throw things off? Maybe.
Yeah, perhaps.
Or at least throw him off of his trail.
I think so. I mean, this is that Google trend.
Okay, so he put on here December 8th, Google Trends show the search history for the house by date. Lots of Thursday activity. What do we think?
Now, I'm sure a person can go and get the activity, like punch in the date, right? Like if it's, it's the 16th today. So can we punch in, the 13th and find out what the trend was on the 13th? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But I mean, this is not how the way he presented this was not how it was perceived. For whatever reason, just the way it was going, the way he talked about it, the way and I can't right now, I mean, it was 2.5 years ago, but the way he like kept going on about these trends, it seemed like he was the one checking them, because who would have thought that? Who would have thought to check those trends? That would have never crossed my mind. Have you ever thought to check a trend like that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
but
okay. Well,
that was I was in law enforcement though, so
okay,
there's a difference,
right?
Yeah. I mean,
when you see that, now everybody that thinks that this is law enforcement is going to be like, okay, that's it. You just confirmed it. It's law enforcement.
Right. I mean, but that's the thing. Like when I was in law enforcement, the Facebook and stuff like that was in its infancy. And I actually caught people that way. When I was in, I'm gonna give my age here. When I was in law enforcement, there was a handful of people who had warrants, and I created a fake MySpace account. So this is how long ago it was.
I didn't even have MySpace.
I created a fake MySpace account and with an attractive young lady, and I told this guy to meet me at the mall, and dude showed up, and I got him, and I was like, man, I wonder how many other people I can get this way, and so
It worked.
I cleared out quite a few people,
Oh,
and
damn.
then I had to change the picture and stuff, but those type of thoughts of like using like technology started to circulate into my mind back then, as far as like, all right, can we figure out from, like, for instance, somebody's phone where they were? Can we figure out, like, for instance, based on the electric company and spikes in electricity, if somebody was awake or not, based on their electric bill, those type of things. And, I went through like that type of training or thought training. And, so when it came to this case, a lot of the things that Papa Rodgers is kind of putting like dots together, like for instance, maybe not so much the knife sheath, although when I was reading this, I think I was reading it more in order. It kind of made sense what he was saying, to be 110% honest with you. But then again, for somebody who's not trained, it'd be kind of weird for them to think of these things.
But if you took like perhaps criminology,
Right. No, yeah, if he's taking that.
taught that, right? So
Right.
you think of it that way, and he literally is taught these things. He's going to school for it. So, that's for me where he could be getting these ideas from.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I'm thinking, when it comes to his train of thought and the questions that he asks. One of the things that I took from his paper as far as an investigation was that he seemed like somebody experienced, somebody that had done it before. It wasn't something that was outrageously like, oh my God, he came up with something that nobody else would have thought of. No other investigator would. It was pretty standard. But for somebody who's never been to a crime scene, somebody who's never investigated a crime scene, there was a lot of thought into it. And you can also see where his main focus was. His focus was on the contamination of a crime scene. I mean, he talked about it more than anything else.
Right.
And so, I think that for some other persons who are trying to like solve crimes, etc., they may focus in on things like, all right, you might want to look for DNA, like he mentioned, on the doorknob or this or that, to try to allude to a suspect based on some of the things that you're seeing in the area. But, he really, really hypes in harps in on contaminating his crime scene. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. This one here comes from, so these are some of the screenshots where correlation with what he had asked with the DeSales University and what he was saying. So this one says, how did you travel to and enter the location that the crime occurred? And it says here, did the killer drive, walk, or some combination or both to the scene? Kind of similar. That's one of the things that ChatGPT on Gray Hughes's channel mentioned too.
What did it say?
It said that the words and the questions and the framework of the questions that were asked were very similar to the way Bryan Kohberger asked questions according to what was publicly out there. And they said 95% chance it was him. I was like, geez, that's high. That's high.
So this one, like, so you see how it's, what does it say? December 20 something, right?
Yeah, I want to say this is the 20th.
So this one kind of messes with me because we already know he drove, right?
Yeah.
And he's already told us, like, or not told us, but as Papa Rodger, this person's already trying to get us to not pay attention to the Hyundai, right? He's already saying it's a red herring. So what's happening that they now want to revisit this and kind of ask this bizarre question? That one kind of, was messy.
What's even more curious is that he was asking for validation or actual evidence of where the bodies were located, but when police are asking for the white vehicle, he's trying to say that it's irrelevant, like you're mentioning. I think
Yeah.
that's probably a bigger piece as well. But what you're mentioning too is I think he's trying to throw off people off his scent, because if they're looking at white Elantras in the area, that's something that he hands and he owns, and people might be aware of what he drives.
I think that too, but I also think this goes with that other screenshot with it. I think it was December 21st, where I really feel that he was, it was when he's with his family, already hiding, at the restaurant, just feeling, remember how like he, whoever may have called felt that he was acting bizarre, I think maybe questions are starting to be asked of him at home, and if this is him, and he's just feeling pressures, and maybe that question was posed to like change the narrative of who this Papa Rodger was trying to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't flow with how he was asking these questions, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. This one here, he says there are lights under the canopy, and there's a picture here that he puts. Not sure what he's referencing as far as the canopy. Is he talking about this?
Yeah, the overlay
ledge
there. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I don't see the
relevance. Yeah.
All right. So I'm assuming that the killer knew Ethan would be there and knew he had to attack him first as he put up the most fight. Papa asks, why do you think that he put up the biggest fight? Where did you get that from? I never said he did put up the most fight. I really don't know anything. They're defensive wounds besides Xana's dad confirming she had them. Just saying he would personally assume he'd be the hardest one to take down and is tall. Let's see.
All right. That to me seems like from one guy to another. And when one loses a fight, like, what do you mean? What do you mean he put up a fight? He didn't, he lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, to be honest, it's probably the first fight, if this is him, that he ever won.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, he had a slight advantage with a 7-inch blade.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Let's see. Kaylee was searched 40 times. Maddie was searched 39 times on November 12th. Interesting.
Yeah. Like, very bizarre fact right there, buddy. Like, where the fuck did you get that from?
Yeah. I'm assuming Google Trends maybe, but I'm not sure. I don't know how accurate that is either.
Yeah, Let's see. Search for what? Oh, their names.
Yeah. Let's see. Papa Rodger says, what do you think the motive is? Blanca says, remember, if he can't have her, no one can. Papa says, who is that? And then Blanca says, JD. He says, have a good night. You said last time, what's your opinion? In my opinion, you don't know who did it and no one else does.
I think maybe he's just annoyed that nobody's figuring it out. Maybe like, you guys are all wrong. You guys are all stupid. Like kind of the teacher mentality,
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not figuring it out. Oh my God, everyone's stupid. I'm the smartest person ever. And it shows.
So this one says, why did the killer choose that house over all the others in the area?
I think that is one of the sales questions that it's not 1,000, like 100% like verbatim, but very similar to how he kind of asked one of his survey questions. Like, why would you choose this place? And what made you choose it?
No, I agree. A knife is a very risky weapon. If you are going to murder 4 people, do you think the killer also had another weapon, such as a stun gun, another knife, or did they not know who? And then that's the end of the question. Let's see.
That wasn't also on the December 20th, where it also seems like a very reach of a question where we already, I think by then would have known if there was at least an inclination of some other factors within this murders. And I think he was just trying to kind of muck it up a little bit. I think he was just getting nervous,
Yeah.
if that was him.
Yeah. Let's see. Papa says they don't clean bodies at a crime scene. The amount of blood must have been tremendous. The police were very specific about the type of knife used. Scott, Julie reportedly told them his shop doesn't sell the specific knife.
There it is. Yeah. Remember one of your members just mentioned that. Yeah.
Did the killer leave the scene? Did he clean it up at all? How did you leave the scene before leaving? Is there anything you did? So these are some questions that fall in line. How did the kill? The same one. The date of the killing was chosen on purpose. Thoughts?
So because that's a question that was asked very early on, that one's on the 15th though. So that one's kind of in the middle. I did think that one was asked on purpose because it had meaning to it. Do you think that do you think it was on purpose?
I do.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. I think everything was very much planned, very strategically, and for a long time. And he thought everything was going to go very smoothly, but there were hiccups, and obviously we know the hiccups.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think he idolized a few people. I think he visualized himself as others. I think one of the persons may have been Patrick Bateman, or Christian Bale's character, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
Really?
Who was 27 years old when he committed his crimes. Bryan Kohberger was 27 that night. He was going to be 28 in a couple of days, or in a few days, by the next weekend, I believe. That whole comment that he made with that one girl where he said that she had good birthing hips.
Yeah.
That's from a movie, Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I remember you found that. That's amazing. Good job.
Well, I think he's a movie guy. And if he's a movie guy, if he's like quoting things like that, is it possible that he idolized, Patrick Bateman, and maybe perhaps one of the things he thought of? Because if you listen to Patrick Bateman's little monologue in the beginning of that movie, he talks about, wearing a mask and not having emotions and feelings, and he's not there, blah, 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 blah. And yet when you read also what Bryan Kohberger said as a young man, it's very similar to what he said, almost as if he took inspiration from it. And so for a guy that's quoting other movies, I'm just curious if there's some sort of correlation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's amazing. All of that. I definitely will be looking into it. Don't you think we would have seen something in his previous writings about movies, or you think this is a new passion of his?
I don't think it's a new passion of his. I think that he talks about having these visions of grandeur in his writings earlier. And so, where do those visions come from? They're probably coming from the movies. They're probably coming from people that he's looking up to. This is prior to his studies in serial killers, etc. And, if he's writing about the lack of emotions as a young teen, I wonder if he caught that movie, which was released in 2000. And so it would have been around, and he may have seen it at that age, which I wonder what kind of, I wonder what kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Impression that would leave on him. Somebody who's maybe perhaps feeling very similar, having to wear a mask, lack of emotions, lack of feeling,
right?
Thoughts of grandeur, thoughts, little things bother Patrick Bateman, those type of things. I mean, and you read what he's saying, everybody's a sack of meat. He's an a-hole to his parents and that to his dad and all these other things. I mean, it almost sounds like, an unedited version of what Patrick Bateman was saying. And, somebody went in there with a bright mind and changed it up and came up with what Patrick Bateman said.
And we know that he wasn't comfortable in his own skin. We know he went through weight loss and stuff like that. And that could very much be on the same track.
So did Patrick Bateman. He lost like 30 pounds for that role.
Wow.
Yeah, he lost a lot of weight. There's some images that look fairly similar. One with the thumbs up, one with the things in his ear in the movie. If you watch it, it's pretty weird. And one of the things also that really struck me was the fact that in the beginning of the movie, he's talking about his regimen, where they're, his soaps that he's using, et cetera, et cetera. And he has this face mask, and he's peeling it off, and it's like a beauty mask. And his face looks real silky smooth after that. Very similar to that image of Bryan Kohberger that he has in his restroom. I'm curious if they find some of these soaps, like if they find the same soaps that Patrick Bateman used. I mean, to me, that'd be weird. Plus, if he's listening to Huey Lewis in that video or in that image, because he's got headphones on.
Yeah.
I'm sure with the download of his phone, they can determine what it is he's listening to. And if it's the news or Huey Lewis, I'm going to be, that's pretty wild to me.
I mean, I guess, wouldn't we have to know ahead of time for them to know to look at his soaps? Or do they take a note of everything? Or will they just look at soaps and be like, yeah, that's just soap?
Right. Well, they have his financial records, right? And
okay.
they can determine where he was at and what he purchased. I'm sure they went through him to see if he purchased a knife. Now, are they on that path to think, oh man, this guy purchased the exact same list of soaps and body wash and face mask that this serial killer did? Probably not. That's probably not high on their list of things to look for. But they should look. They should look. I would look.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, it could be nothing. I mean, he could be listening to, Almost a Woman by Britney Spears, and that could be what's on his playlist. Who knows what's on his playlist at that point. But if it is something like that, I think it would venture just to kind of take a peek into it. Like, hey, did he purchase these set of specific soaps? Did he purchase this set of things? And if they can find some sort of resume that he may have been doing, like if it was 1,000 sit-ups and a bunch of other stuff, because he looks palely sick and he looks very thin. If he's doing some of the workouts that Christian Bale was doing, and that's just more things.
Very pale in that picture. And I mean, he doesn't look good at all. I mean, that picture is just, it's bad.
No. So Pappa comes back saying, regardless of what has been released, I believe this is a sexually motivated crime. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
I think he's trying to throw it again. That's on the 21st. I don't feel anything on that one. Like, I read that one and I was just like, bullshit, I have a hard time even diving into that one. What about you?
I think that could be to throw somebody off, because I mean,
well, let me hold on. Can I rewind? I'm sorry. I think that it is sexually motivated because we do know that he's an incel. We do know that this is, he has, if this is, like that, obviously he has an attraction. He wants the woman that he can't get, all of that. But I don't think, like, the way that it was perceived at that time when we first saw it, a lot of people thought that it was like kind of, meant that he was the person that committed these crimes did something sexually to the victims. I think that's what we all kind of felt when we read that, and everybody was just like, no, we're not, like, nobody felt that. So I think, like, I'm just still kind of, that's my still, what I feel when I see that, like, no, I'm just not, but I do know that, or I do feel that, like, it's like he, struggled with women and all that. So I feel like in that aspect, is it sexually motivated? Then yeah, of course. Okay, I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, it's okay. To me, I was thinking about it because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he's not an incel. He got phone numbers. He did this. He did that. But then again, you listen to what his own defense team has said about his behaviors and how they're socially awkward and, not understanding of of when somebody's being nice or romantic or whatever the case may be, and there's a lot of confusion of the two in between.
Mhm.
And that makes you think that maybe he was an incel, because I know that that hasn't been put out there publicly, but given what the zone defense team has talked about as far as his social awkwardness and etc., I think there's that possibility. Now,
Can we put up the exact definition of incel? Would that be
well,
okay?
an incel, yeah, that's fine. An incel is somebody who is involuntarily in celibate, that they
Celibate, exactly. So if he's getting phone numbers, that doesn't mean he's getting laid,
right,
right?
no, exactly. And I get that. And I know that when he was getting the phone numbers, that Howard Bloom talked to those girls that he got phone numbers from, and they mentioned that they never got a phone call from Bryan Kohberger or a text message, but they did get phone calls from private numbers that they would just hear somebody breathing and hang up. And so, yes, and I've said this too. I mean, there's one thing, there's a difference between putting on a uniform and looking good and getting in the batter box and actually hitting the ball. And
Mhm.
that's the same thing there. I mean, he can go out there and he can pretend to be a certain way and he can have that mask, but at the end of the day, if he can't, if he's not, like, for instance, Ted Bundy, who I think probably had similar characteristics.
But he still had
He
swag.
had, right. He had the charisma and the charm. He had the mask that he was able to put on was, um how can I put it? It was more convincing than what
Yeah.
Bryan Kohberger can do. And so, um just kind of, food for thought there. But the last picture that I wanted to bring up, and I don't know when this comment was left, you know.
Okay, so I did try to, thanks Karen for looking, but I asked somebody to help me out on finding the exact date of when this was left, and we feel that it was 5 weeks prior to his arrest. So that would put us at the, like, well, actually, no, that doesn't work either. So it was while so it was within that 4 weeks, but it was in the beginning, we feel,
Mhm.
like, during the first week of December. Um, Probably, like, I would say, like, around December. What is there not a date at the top of there?
The date on the top where it says November 21st, but that's when the post was put. When, that doesn't necessarily mean when he
So, I
commented
think
that
it
part.
was, yeah, within like I said, like, December 2nd, within there, like, that first week, because I think, this is just right when he's making that Papa Roger profile, and this is brand new to him to have an alt, right? So when somebody makes an alt, you got to switch back and forth when you're commenting, and he may have just kind of forgot to make that switch, and he went on to this school district's web profile page to make a comment and forgot that he was under if this was him, the Papa Roger profile, and made the comment. And honestly, I don't think he even knew that he did it. And then just kept going on with his, regular activities as Papa Roger. For us, it was shocking because this Carmel City School District is located in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is in the vicinity. And there's maps in the files I sent you, there's maps. There's a toggle for maps, and it should show, like, how close it was to where they traveled through when they drove back to Pennsylvania. It's right
Mhm.
there. So there's some connection, and like I said earlier, there are no coincidences.
Right. And I feel that this is interesting. But even if you're right, let's just say that this was an accident and he meant to comment as Bryan Kohberger. Why would he be commenting on Carmel Clay Schools? So I don't think, if it is him, it was an accident.
If it is him, then it was or was not? I'm
Was
sorry.
not an accident.
So you think he meant it as Papa Roger?
Yeah, I think it was meant to throw people off. If it is him, if Papa Roger is not Bryan Kohberger, then the possibility of it being an accident is still there. I don't think that this is an accident, that he meant to make this comment as Bryan Kohberger, because what is his connection to Carmel Clay Schools? Now, if this happened in December 16th, 15th, and he made this comment, in the middle of December while he was on this road trip or shortly afterwards, that makes a little bit more sense that it could be Bryan Kohberger. If it was
Right.
made beforehand, I struggle with it being him.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could get the exact date, but right now, maybe somebody can comment and let us know if they can pull the exact date. But I do know it was around, I mean, it's just within, I can't, I hate to speak on something that I don't know the facts on, but I just got a message. So maybe I got the date.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Nope, it wasn't that. But I just think it's like he's a teacher, right?
Right.
And that's where it's kind of like, why would he comment on a school though? If you're not interested in kind of administrative school kind of activities, right?
See, that would make sense that, you have this other person who's in criminal justice who maybe perhaps does have some sort of law enforcement background, asking some of these questions and looking up some of these things. Because it does, to me, appear that whoever Papa Rodgers is, I would venture to say has some sort of experience in criminal justice or law enforcement.
Right.
Which doesn't exclude Bryan Kohberger, which that's the weird thing, It doesn't exclude him.
Right. And the other thing, like, I don't know, like, where this is going to segue or not, but there's one thing I just don't want to forget that we talk about. But so you remember how I said that, it kind of just went dead after all this, right? Like he just disappeared, right? Then in July of 2023, July 29th to be exact, the real Papa Rodger account did not stand up, but it did show back up for exactly 24 hours. It was reactivated. Now, you being in law enforcement, I don't know, like, how long ago and, that was even a thing, but I feel that they went to Meta and were like, can you just reactivate it? And they were like, well, for how long? And they were like, well, we just need to gather some information. I'm like, how about we just do it a 24-hour reactivation? And they're like, that's good enough.
And what day was this?
July 29th. And I have all the proof of that too. And it was the real account was reactivated on July 29th. So what are they looking for if it's not him?
Yeah, it's interesting. That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be Papa Rodgers reactivating it for a day.
Sure.
It could also be law enforcement.
Right. Very, very much so. But I have people checking all the time, almost daily. And I mean, that's been the only time. And it was also right after, I think, I don't have the, hold on, I might. I thought I had the case summary in front of me, but on the case summary, I think you would see that, I think on July 16th, there was a motion or something for Meta filed. It's just too coincidental. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I know that there was a news outlet. I want to say it was Dateline or one of those two that said that they believe that Bryan Kohberger is Papa Rodgers. So,
yeah,
this document was just dropped today. I wanted to talk about it before we go into some rapid fire questions. Okay. And this one's talking about the family members in the courtroom. Obviously, they're going to allow the victims' family members in. They put a provision for them not to be wearing the firing squad T-shirts, but you guys can get yours right here. But I had to just throw that out there. It's in the link if you guys want it. But they're not allowed to wear it, but you guys are. Make sure you guys go and pick it up.
And do you know why? Do you know why they're putting that out there?
Why they're putting that they're not allowed to wear it?
Right. You remember there was a family member that wore a shirt like that.
I heard that there was. I don't know.
And to each their own. Like, everybody else gets to do whatever they want and, show up and do all this messed up stuff, act a fool in the courtroom and this and that. But a family member shows up with support and they get blasted for it. I mean, they're literally singling out, the wrong people, I believe.
I agree 100%. And I don't think that any of that clothing was actually worn into the courthouse. So
of course it wouldn't. I mean, I doubt it was too. I
Yeah.
really don't believe it would ever have been.
No. And so, but they're going to allow them with that provision that they don't wear the DT show Idaho House Bill 37 shirt. Now, Bryan Kohberger is asking for his family to be there. Now, the law enforcement has come in. I mean, prosecution has come in saying that they are going to ask some of the defendant's family members to be witnesses at trial.
Right.
I'm assuming this has to do with the purchase of the K-bar knife, maybe perhaps even his behavior around the time between December 16th and the time that he was arrested and back in Pennsylvania, and maybe even his father, as far as what conversations they may have had in the car.
And I would think they would question them about this whole Amazon account that it says there's 4 users. Well, now let's talk about let's question each user since it's such a big deal, you know?
Exactly. And so I think that's what is going to be referenced. But Bryan Kohberger wants basically his family to be able to attend. I do think that it would look a certain way if his family wasn't in the courtroom to the jury.
May I intercept, please, real quick? So I just got a message from Deb. Hi, Deb. That they have, some of my members did confirm he does have family in Carmel, where that school district is.
Oh, wow.
So I will try to get more information on that. But yeah, they said he does have family there. I think it was a cousin.
That would be interesting. If there is some sort of connection there, now that would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? No, it's okay. How do you feel about Bryan Kohberger's family, though, being in the courtroom? Do you think that?
I mean, when we think about other cases, like, you know, when we think about the Murdaugh case, like Buster was in the courtroom and he testified.
That's true.
Right? Like, so, like, we got to like really think about it, because if his family can be in there and they got to testify, that means all families can be in there. We can't choose, because they kind of were leading at one point that maybe some of the victims' families shouldn't be in there, right? Well, can't do that.
No.
You know?
No, and I think it's so it's twofold, right? It's either you allow them to sit there and hear the testimony of everybody and you go in the order in which you want, or, you know, I think they're going to allow them to sequester them out of the building until they testify. But then I think that you're going to be asked to go out of order and have those individuals testify first, which I don't know if that is something. I don't know. You have to outweigh the pros and cons of that, you know, by having them go out there first, you know, especially if they're going to talk about his behaviors. To me, I think that that's probably something that you want at the end, right before the defense goes and talks about, you know, their emotions and stuff. You want that the most fresh in the jury's head, that he purchased the knife. You know, he was acting odd. You know, he's cleaning his vehicle often, wearing gloves, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, I think it might be more important to go in order than it is to have them not in the building. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think it's more important for them to go in order and not get things confused. This is going to be not a typical 6-week trial. It's going to be, I think, the full 4 months like they expect. And these jurors are going to get very impatient. They're going to get, we don't even know if the jurors are going to be sequestered yet. We don't.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Given the high profile of the case.
And think about like how frustrating that's going to be for them for this length of time, from summer into fall, approaching, like missing all the, you know, if they have children and this and that, and then going, you know, towards Thanksgiving. I mean, this is going to put pressure on them to want things to go in the manner, you know, that's easiest for them to understand it. So when it's time for verdict, they don't have to be flipping back and forth, and that take even longer than, you know, is fair to them with their time.
Interesting. Yeah. All righty. So we're going to hit up with some rapid fire questions. Artworks comes in saying, do you think Pappa Rodgers might have been an FBI psychologist, if not Bryan Kohberger? I think he was definitely had a background in law enforcement or criminal justice, whoever Papa Rogers may be.
I agree.
Let's see. Steph C says, I don't believe that it is BK. While I know there is interest in it, I am not sure why, because I hold little relevance in the case. Okay. I wonder if there was an app that turns your picture into a Russian soldier. I'm sure you can do something like that, with AI nowadays.
I agree.
That's,
That one was just too unique to look like him.
I agree. Jen says, wasn't Bryan using a VPN? Would that prevent law enforcement from seeing it on his devices? I don't think so. I think once they have their devices, they would be able to see what he was doing. What are your thoughts on that?
I think initially, once they get it and they open it and they're like, let's look at it. Yeah. They're going to be like, we don't see anything right off the bat. But once they, send it off to forensic, investigation, like technology, like the bigger, whoever knows how to do this stuff really good, and they start dissecting it, that's when they're really going to figure all out everything he's trying to hide and delete it and all of that stuff. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to hide anything from them. I hope, right? Like,
Right.
Isn't that their job?
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Hold on, let's see. Okay. I just want to make sure one thing real quick, because I saw Deb saying that there was something in my Discord chat. So just a graph, I believe. So I just wanted to make sure I got all that. I don't see the graph.
I needed to talk about. Can I still bring it up?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I gotta find it, but I missed it. But they really wanted me to bring up a timeline about this. Okay. All right. So can I just read it? All right. For the longest time, but hold on. So December 22nd, if you look at all the timing of the search warrants, December 22nd is a date where I got to put my glasses on. All right. December 22nd is a date where there is a slew of warrants on Bryan's information, like AT&T phone records, for example, plus I guess there's a video, but under oath, one of the law enforcement officers corroborate this timing when asked by AT. December 30th, 2022, there's a screenshot of Pappa's last post in the big group, and that was, December 22nd, his last post. This is when his profile is still active, but after he was booted from the group. The screenshot even says former member of the Idaho murder group. December 22nd, let me know if I'm getting confusing. There's a screenshot of this question in that file. It's one of the last ones under Pappa. Okay. It's kind of going to look like a lot of like that. It's just going to be a lot of black writing. Okay.
I'll see if I can find it.
December 22nd, matching the timeline above, but he wasn't booted from the group until December 29th, 7 days of no new posts. Now, remember how I said around December 20th, 21st, I felt like he was going on a downward spiral, and he was very like trying to change like how people were thinking, or not downward spiral. I felt that was before he went on the drive. This is when I felt he was kind of changing how he wanted people to think, right? Now he wants them, how did the perp drive there, walk there? And it's like, no, we already talked about that. And you already said you don't want them paying attention to the car, So things are kind of messy here. Now, fast forward to after Bryan's arrest. Now we're on May 23rd, 2023. There is a motion to seal. This is the one I was talking about. There is a motion to seal metadata on that date. Two of the reasons listed to seal the metadata is disclose investigative techniques and procedures and disclose the identity of a confidential source. It's ordered to be sealed up until August 1st, 2023, right? And what is the day that his the Pappa Rodger profile was reactivated for 24 hours? July 29th. July 29th, the Pappa profile is reactivated 2 days before the end of the meta sealing order, then deactivated again for 24 hours. Right? So then it just Yeah, so that's just something I wanted to address too. So before I forgot.
That is an interesting timing. And I found it. This is the one that says July 29, 2023, Pappa profile reactivated 2 days before the end of the meta sealing order,
Yeah.
then deactivated it again.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty
Interesting.
wild.
That is wild. The timing behind that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Steph C says Indiana based and posted after BK was in jail. AI doesn't always get things right, whether he is or isn't. Little relevance. I think there is some relevance if he is, because if it is him, if it is Bryan Kohberger, I think that this is a clear indication of somebody who is involving himself in the case, which is
What
something.
does that say? In Indiana based and posted after
BK was in jail.
That's
So
the Carmel post.
I don't think the Carmel was posted afterwards, but I think what they're saying is that BK or Papa Rodgers was based out of Indiana, and they also posted after Bryan Kohberger was in jail.
That's not true.
And so that's
I'm telling you, it's not true. Like, I have this profile. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, if you can show me the proof, I will just back down and say, okay, I'm wrong. Like, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. Trust me. But that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I think people are looking at is just that screenshot of somebody claiming to be Papa Rodgers saying that they caught
saying
trout.
I went fishing. And there's like another one saying, I've been gone for a while or something, but guess what? Season 2 or stay tuned. Season 2 of me is coming soon or something like that. And everyone was like, oh my God, he's back. It's not him. Why would he say something like that? Does that even sound like him?
Yeah.
No.
When did he stop responding? Do you know when the last thing that he put out there was?
I don't off the bat right now. I would assume it's going to be around that December 22nd timeline.
Yeah. Let's see. Bryan was pulled twice. One was the post. One of the posts was after the first pullover. Bryan was still driving on the second pullover. They didn't change seats yet. Yeah, but they also I think there was like 10 minutes had gone by in between the times that he got pulled over. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I don't want to speak on it if I don't know for sure, but it was around then for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I was under the impression that he didn't post during 2 days of his driving travel.
How can you tell the exact moment? Does it say the time, like when somebody posts, or does it just say the date?
Well, when I was the admin, I could see more specific details. So I think we were able to see more, but definitely just the date.
I was just going to say, because all I see on all of the screenshots thus far are just the date.
Yeah.
I don't see the time frame in which that they're saying. So I think you might be wrong as far as, oh, it happened between that's sometimes that happens.
Unless you can't get that. No.
Yeah, so it's just 3 weeks.
Yeah, no.
And you know, if it was like, unless it was like that day, right? It might say 3 hours ago,
right.
4 hours ago.
Right. You can look at the top of what time you took the picture, right?
But nobody knew who Bryan Kohberger was that day that he got pulled over.
Absolutely.
Except for maybe the FBI.
Right. Yeah. And the cop, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if this statement is 100% accurate there. And I mean, even if he did post that one day, he did say that they were going to go out to eat for Thai food. And so, I mean, when he goes to the restaurant, he's probably on his phone. He's a 28-year-old man at the time.
Exactly. I mean, he messed up if it was him.
Yeah. Let's see. If it's not BK, it's someone who wanted people to think he was the perp, another very sick person. Do you think that could have been the case? I don't. It seemed like this person was very much on like, I figured this out. I'm smarter than everybody, kind of got that feeling from them as well. I feel like they would have been gloating about some of these things.
Right. Well, again, like it goes back to after December 30th, what happened?
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
That's true. Let's see. If the sheath was planted at the scene, how would that be planted knowing that BK's DNA was on it? You can't just see DNA. That is true. And why plant that DNA? I mean, not plant DNA of some other kind.
Right. That's just I mean, why not why not plant something with more DNA? Why something so difficult to find DNA on? You know?
Right. Ivy League says, playing devil's advocate, but if PR really wasn't BK, then how do you suppose PR knew all those factual details before law enforcement put them out? So, to me, it's not difficult to put some of the things that he's saying together. As you said it before, also that some of these things were out there, like the knife sheath may have been left behind.
Mhm.
That was out there before he mentioned it.
But that means he had to have been watching every single news station, every single, report on this, and had to have caught that one specific or two specific news reports that mentioned that, because there was only like 2 or 3, right? So he had to have actually heard those and seen those.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, I
specific.
there are some folks that can determine things based off of a small amount of information, or just hyper focus on details. Like, for instance, there was a scenario that happened, I think, in Florida a couple of years back, where they found a couple of deceased folks. They found one in a trash can, one outside of a trash can, and one in the trunk of a vehicle. Now, the initial reports came out that they had found one, then they found another, and there was a third missing. And then they come out saying that they end up getting the third one. They found the third one, but they didn't put out there where the third one was, outside of after a warrant for a vehicle.
Mhm.
And so I put out there that she was in the trunk. I was like, she's in the trunk, and she was shot too, just like the other two.
Mhm.
Now, I was able to determine that basically because of the warrant factor. Because if she was in the back seat or on the driver's side or whatever the case may have been, you don't need a warrant to enter into a vehicle where you can see a dead body in. There are some circumstances that exist in that scenario that would allow an officer to enter into that vehicle without a warrant. So in order to have a warrant to figure out that there was somebody in the car, that means that they were out of view. Whether that means that they were on the floor, with something covered on top of them, which is probably unlikely, or they were in the trunk. And, just the power of deduction, I was able to determine that. But I was able to determine that fairly quickly, and to the point where some people were questioning me about some things. And I'm like, no, I'm not psychic. It's
Right.
just very easy for me to figure some of these little things out.
Mhm.
It's not very hard, especially in that scenario.
Well, yeah.
But is it possible that Papa Rogers is somebody that is similar, that is just hyper focused on the details? I think there's a possibility of that if he is not Brian, if Papa Rogers is not Bryan Kohberger.
But you also had experience in the field, right?
I
This
do have
before you were in law
experience in the
that
field.
was that before you were in law enforcement?
No, obviously no. I was in law
Okay,
enforcement.
see the difference there?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been it's been a long time. It's been quite a while, almost 2 decades now. So
But experience is experience, like, you have that intuition, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
he's fresh with that intuition. He's fresh off of classes and being a teacher's assistant and all of that,
yeah. Stephanie asks, couldn't Dustin have been law enforcement? Just a thought. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know about the other persons that we're
Yeah,
talking.
we're not worried about Dustin.
Yeah.
I hope Dustin's well. Dustin, reach out.
Do we know why Ethan was subject to a second examination? I have no idea. Have you heard anything about that?
It's usually if there's a second autopsy, it's usually the family's choice because they just want a little bit more information. They're just looking for more. They're not, it's not that they're not satisfied with the first one. It's just that, and obviously with the circumstances with this one, we know that the coroner had to do all 4 of them. She was pressed for time. She was already had, a lot of other things going on. She already couldn't do them as quickly as they wanted it done because of her, load. So I think they just wanted an extra peace of mind, and I can definitely understand why.
Yeah. We have a 199 super chat from We the Captain Now. How can BK not be Papa Rogers creeper if it's not him?
Right.
And Jason comes in with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Jason. Let's see. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker since we're running short on time. Let's see.
How do you not go to the bathroom this whole time?
I race cars. You don't go in the bathroom there.
I guess not.
Just virtually, guys. Just virtually. Nothing illegal. Let's see. California Dreaming. Do you think you will ever find out who Papa Rodger is? If he was FBI law enforcement, would they want to reveal that? I know they do some work on social media to try to get that information. You know, I think that he was a little bit, whoever Papa Rodgers is, was a little bit too feisty to want to fight people and get in a confrontation to be law enforcement undercover or something of that nature.
I agree. I think if it was law enforcement, some of the verbiage they used just it was not professional enough. And maybe that was part of the plan, but it didn't work. And where'd they go? And why'd they reactivate it? And they could say, well, they stopped posting because he got arrested. But that still doesn't, then law enforcement should be smarter than that and be like, well, you still got to finish the job, right? Be like, all right, guys, I'm getting married. I got to go. I'll be back in a month or something, close it. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's weird. And like you said, and we mentioned, it'd be one thing, if he wasn't him, a lot of people were thinking that it could be him. What kind of person would be okay letting people think that too, And so
that it was law enforcement?
No, for instance, if let's just say this is some random guy, Papa Rodgers, a lot of people think that there's a possibility it could be him. There's a lot of people that are speculating that, and a lot of people that are looking at Bryan Kohberger and assuming that it is him. What kind of person would be okay with people thinking that? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Oh, I think for him, it just builds his, because he wants to feel like more of a man. He wants to feel better and bigger. And, and I think this helps build that rapport for him. I think this makes him feel better, this is part of his coming out of his shell and becoming somebody. And this was that mask, and nobody ever as far as he's concerned, they still can't figure him out. He's still wearing that mask.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very much possible. Do you think that if he is Papa Rodgers, that comes out in trial?
Depending on what relevancy it has to the crimes. I mean, we have to see what how much it's how does it connect to the crimes that he's committed, right? What does this have to do? What does his social activity have to do with this terrible thing that he did, right?
Right.
And is the judge going to be like, this is a waste of my time? I don't care. Let's just figure out, all this real evidence stuff. Maybe he doesn't care about social media and stuff like that. I just don't know how relevant this will be as to, proving that this is him. Do you know what I mean? I would have to really think about how this would help with convicting him.
Well, I think the fact that he was talking about the knife sheath, left behind, before most people were talking about that, him getting involved into the case, putting himself out there. If there's something in there that he said that is coincides with the crime scene that only the killer would know, it would definitely spark up some interest to bring up in court. I mean, that's kind of how they got Richard Allen in Delphi's. He mentioned a white van. If he didn't bring up the white van in his confessions, I think that would have been a more difficult case to have convicted.
And I think it can go towards behaviors and definitely towards penalty phase, being arrogant, not having any compassion. I think it can help in that part of it. like towards that. I just think they have what they need, if this is him, to prove to the jury that that he's the one that did it.
Oh yeah, I think they're gonna be able to do that fairly easy.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Trial's coming around the corner. I want to thank you so much for joining us,
You're welcome.
and thank you for your time.
Having me.
Yes, guys, go check out the site. It's Idaho Trial Discussions and Updates. I know that Chloe's been in the live chat. She's been posting it up there for those that are interested in joining their group. It's level-headed and a lot of common sense in this group. Let's keep it that way. Let's not get the pro-burgers infiltrating it and turning it into a circus. And so if you want some good conversation about the case, make sure you go and check out this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope I can have you back on. Yeah, it was a great
God,
talking
I'd
to you.
love to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank everybody that's tuned in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. We have Steve Goncalves on the channel, on the show in the next week or so. I have the date already locked in for our interview. When it'll be released, it's going to be a couple of days after that. And so I anticipate it being out by the end of next week, the latest. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. You're not going to want to miss that interview. Don't forget to go check out the merch store to go get your bonfire shirt, your Idaho House Bill 37 Firing Squad Unit t-shirt. And for the women, it's also the Racerback shirt is available for you guys. Go like, comment, subscribe. But until next time, guys, we'll see y'all later. Peace out.
Thank you. Bye.